And welcome back to the Baseball Development Hub podcast. My name is Trevor Powers, and I am joined by co-host of the podcast, Dan Galati. Dan, we have a ton of fun stuff to talk about as we continue our travels through the fall with our trip to Penn State last weekend. But before we get into all of that, how are you doing? Big win for the Dogs this weekend. Little roller coaster ride that you felt on Saturday. So just checking in on this fine Monday on the mental health.
I'm doing good. Thank you for asking. What a great college football Saturday for a college football fan. Just incredible. From noon till midnight, it was just banger after banger of games. Georgia Tech, Clemson in the noon window, Georgia, Tennessee, Texas A&M, Notre Dame. Just unbelievable football games this weekend. Is there anything better than the following days after your favorite college football team wins a huge game? There's like nothing better. Just like I want to see it all. I want all the film breakdowns. I want all the reactions. I want all the rhetoric. I want to hear about every other game. I just want it all, whereas when you lose, you have to take your medicine and listen to the stuff. But if you skip one or two things here or there, it's understandable. But when your team wins a big one like that, it's just like I can't stop, man. I just keep looking, I'm listening to people. I don't even care what they think, but I'm tuning in. I don't like Ari Wasserman and Andy Staples. Don't like them. Don't think they're good. Don't think don't like their stuff. Good guys, I'm sure. Don't like their stuff. I'm listening to their reaction. Yeah, let me hear it. Let me hear what you guys got to say. It's fun.
Yeah, that felt like a rhetorical question for me as a Penn State fan because
No.
notoriously they don't typically win the big games. But I will say you struck a positive nerve there when you said I remember after the USC game where they played really well, fought back. It was like every podcast under the sun I wanted to listen to and get the analysis and things like that. So I'm definitely with you on that. The funny part and the ironic part there was the what could have been if I didn't respect and understand the person that you were. If we were more of a banter type of podcast and friend group, that would have been a dig at me. But I know that wasn't the motive behind what you had said there. But yeah, awesome college football Saturday. Obviously, that's where me and you spend the majority of our Saturdays doing if we're not traveling, which this Saturday we will be, which will be a lot of fun and really exciting to look forward to. But definitely a good slate of games from this past Saturday. And with that being said, speaking of Penn State University, we were up in Happy Valley last Tuesday into Wednesday, the way we operate, or Wednesday into Thursday, whichever one. It was Tuesday into
Who
Wednesday.
remembers?
Yeah, one or the other at this point in time. The way we operate, we leave here the crack of dawn, drive the whole way up, film, hang out, film the next day, drive all the way back. So in and out, we don't get to stay very long, but we make the most of our visits, quite frankly. And this one was super impressive, as most are. There haven't been one that is not. But it is cool to see the progression. This is the first time we've been somewhere twice. The progression of a program that does, in fact, care about winning at a high level, and to see the investments that are being made and how the locker room changes from what was to what is, and the recovery room at the baseball stadium goes from what was to what is, and then the cages and the weight room that they now have at the stadium as well, what was to what is. So what is your takeaway initially from our time in Happy Valley, being able to hang out with all of those guys? That was the first time we were around their whole coaching staff and the whole program. What are your big takeaways from that program and where the trajectory is with Coach Gambino entering his third year?
Man, there's so many different directions I feel like I can go there. If all you care about is winning national championships, and like that's it. Like if the standard is national championship, nothing else matters. Penn State might not be your favorite program, right? And I get that. Like I don't know if that team is ready to win a national championship this year. I don't know if that team will ever win one. I think they definitely are working towards it, and the investment they're putting in and the athletic department has put in has 100%. They're backing up that they think they can, and they want to go to Omaha, and they want to be in Omaha multiple times. That's the type of investment they're getting. but first class people. Like if you care about the development of people, the development of players, what it means to have an organizational, have a good culture where winning is important, but winning is a byproduct of everything else we do, where the way they talk, the way they treat people, and I'm just blown away. And for me, it's like we've gone to several places now where you can say that about the people we've interacted with, the people that we've asked for their time and they've agreed to give us their time. Those people, we haven't gone anywhere where we've been treated poorly. Because of the way Penn State is set up, we interacted with a lot more people than we typically do. We were outside the facility because obviously the Greenberg, they wanted to take us to Greenberg, the beautiful new development center that they have there for recovery, where they feed their athletes, and that's across the board, all sports. So we got to interact with people in that building. The way everyone treats you when you walk on that campus is like almost unheard of. It doesn't feel real. And like I mentioned something to Coach Mike Gambino about it. Like I was like, how everyone treats people. And he was like, yeah, we don't teach people that. Like, why? What do you mean? Like he looked at me like I was an idiot. He was like, of course that's how you guys are being treated. Like you guys aren't special. And it's just like, yeah, I get that. And you say that. And like, yeah, that should be just like the status quo, but that's not how it is everywhere. And honestly, like, when we go into, especially during fall seasons, summer it's different because not many people around, but when we're in the fall season and like these guys are working, we've been in places where like, if they ignore us, the players specifically, like we're not there working with the players on the stage, we're with coaches. We're trying to get, we're talking player development with coaches. We're doing the facility stuff with coaches. We're not really interacting with players. We don't have to. A lot of times places will ignore us, those players. And I never once have felt upset about that. It's like, yeah, I don't matter to you. We're just these guys walking around with microphones and cameras. Like every single player on that roster asks you how you're doing and says hello. We're at practice. And like I'm getting shots. I'm standing in the dugout. We're at their practice. I'm standing in the dugout. And their guys are like, hey, how you doing? Am I in your way? It's like, dude, practice. Like you work on what you got. Like I act like I'm not here. Like and it's just like the team doctor saying hello and asking me how my day's going. It's like, dude, you have no clue who I am. I'm just this random guy here in, polos and khakis, a polo and khakis. And like, I don't matter. So it's just, they're first class human beings up there, man. The whole campus, the place is unbelievable. And if you go up there and you see what that facility has turned into, the investment they're making in all athletics, but baseball especially, and you don't drink the Kool-Aid, something's wrong with you.
Yeah, I believe the exact words on how they treat people is that's just the standard, right? Like I don't feel the need to. He basically said like, don't take offense to this to us, which obviously we wouldn't take offense to very much, but that's not something we talk about. We set a standard and we embody the standard of just treating people to a certain degree of respect and hi, hello, and how we do the little things. And that's just how it is, right? And I know we're blown away as people that are being dropped into the middle of what is normal for them. So he even looks at us and he's like, yeah, that's what we do, right? And I think that's campus wide. I remember Wheels last year, we were walking around and we're having that conversation about, why the decision to go from associate head coach at St. Joe's and in a situation where you have a lot more roles and responsibilities on the field of coaching ball and the recruiting element and things, and obviously has a ton of responsibilities at Penn State. And one of the things that had stood out to me was they call it Happy Valley for a reason, right? And again, we're lucky enough we were there in July and now September, right? So the weather is beautiful, low humidity, 70 degrees, a little chilly in the morning. But once the sun comes out and it's just gorgeous, and you look at the Mount Nittany in the background of the field, and as Coach Gambino said to us, one of the best backdrops in college baseball, and I would definitely agree with that. And just the area it's beautiful, it's quiet, it's a college town, right? It is the prototypical college town, what you fall in love with when you think of college towns. And then you mentioned how people treat you. I mean, everybody is enjoying their time. We were out at dinner. I was looking around and people on a Monday night just having drinks, having a good time, just seemingly having that feel of happiness in a college campus and just that, positive nature of the community, right? And then not to mention the people outside of the baseball program, right? That we're there working directly with the baseball program. So when other people are giving us their time, right? Chief Performance Officer Jeremy Scott, people like that don't necessarily have to, right? Like they're not obligated by the baseball program to give us time and give us effort and give us energy. They do. And they jump through hoops to make it happen. And they treat us with respect and a smile and answer our questions about everything, strength conditioning, the football program, all these things that we're curious about at schools and programs like this because we love to get behind the curtain. That is always going to be the best part of these trips, is when those opportunities are presented to us.
Filming was tricky in Greenberg because of, HIPAA, and like every sports team is in that facility. So like it's crowded. Jeremy Scott gets to the facility before 7 a.m. to let us shoot. This guy's the chief performance officer at Penn State. Like, he's got 6,000 things on his schedule for a day, and we show up one day and it's just like, yeah, I'll meet you guys here before 7 a.m. tomorrow morning so you guys can get whatever you need. Like, everyone's just and this is just such I think a credit to Pat Kraft, honestly, is like just how that department runs. Like, because when it extends outside of just the baseball program, like, you go to some places and like the baseball program, one way, and then again, we don't really see the other ones, or you hear stories, or like you just don't think, but like everyone in the department that you deal with in athletics is like, I'll bend over backwards so you guys get whatever you need. I'll throw my whole day off. I'll get I'll get up earlier. I'll get to work earlier so that you guys can do what you need to do, because, they understand that hopefully we're helping them by putting this stuff out to the masses. But dude, he came in before 7 a.m. This guy didn't know us from, whoever. This is a guy who's in an important job. He's held important roles before. He's been big time in college athletics. And like, it honestly, like I said to you, after we got back later in the week, like, it was such a crash back to reality, this trip. Some trips, like, you're excited to get home. This one was such a crash back to reality because it was like, we were just up there where everything was like hard to believe and it felt like it wasn't real. And now you're like back to real life and, sitting at a desk and doing our other things. It's just like, that's the best way I can put it, if people can understand that. I don't know if that's a good analogy, but like I use the movie 21, where like in the movie 21, they're going and playing blackjack every weekend in Vegas and living these high roller lifestyles. And then Monday morning they're back on their college campus. And it's like, it just felt like that. It was just like that. We were just doing that. And now here I am, and no one around me knows like the people I just got to be around and where I just was. And it's a special place, man. And like, if you, from a baseball specific standpoint now, tying it back to that, like, I hope that everyone tunes into this episode of this when we're talking about them, to our content coming out from there, because they're a rocket ship. There's no doubt in my mind they're a rocket ship, especially if they are able to keep that staff together, which might, I mean, with the investment, they probably will be able to, but people should be beating down the door for those assistants he has.
Yeah, no, it was an impressive group, right? And again, I think the thing that stood out last year, right, tying these together, because the reality is this is the first place we've been able to go twice, right? And you see the progress and you kind of have those initial conversations. Life circumstances were interesting because so many people had tied Mike Gambino to a lot of big time jobs. And one of the things that kept him at BC for a long time was certain circumstances due to his family. When Pat Kraft took the job, who he had worked with at BC at a time, Pat Kraft was at BC for a couple of years before he came over to Penn State. So there was a relationship there. But Mike Gambino wouldn't have left BC if the situation in State College, Pennsylvania, did not feel like one of what we typically tied to Penn State baseball. He believes wholeheartedly that the wrestling program, the volleyball program, the football program, the hockey program, all of these programs, the soccer program, lacrosse program, that are competing for national championships each and every year, is what the baseball program is going to be. And I think the biggest thing, and you mentioned Pat Kraft, and I think Pat Kraft is the straw that stirs the drink in all of Penn State athletics' commitment to the new age of college athletics. The ability for Mike Gambino to believe that is because, and it's been put into practice as well. Like, I think that's the biggest takeaway. Last year, it was like, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to have. This is what we're going to be. Now you walk through that door and this is what we are. We have nutrition for our athletes accessible under the stadium now. We have a brand new locker room that looks like it unbelievable, right? From the future almost. It was probably one of the nicer, at least from locker standards, that we've seen in terms of locker rooms. It was beautiful. It was gorgeous. They have the new indoor hitting facility and weight room accessible to them at the baseball facility. They don't now have to go, and sure, at campuses like that where sports complexes are tied together, maybe it's not that far for them to get to Huluba Hall. But if it's 15 minutes both ways, you have kids coming back and forth from class, they have to get changed either in their car or in their locker room, it's a disadvantage. Creating accessibility within the time constraints that college athletes are under is huge to translating from X wins to Y wins and progressing and taking the program to the next level and hosting a regional and then hosting a super regional and then making it to Omaha. And I think that's the coolest part of being able to look at that program, because every program has visions. We're going to expand our stadium. We're getting a new player development center. We're going to invest in tech. We're going to have the money to get the best coaches to come to State College, Pennsylvania, or wherever, right? I'm not identifying State College specifically, but every program, when a head coach takes the job, there's visions. I'm only taking this job if I get X, Y, and Z. And now it's revenue share, it's NIL, it's funding, it's resources, it's coaching salaries, everything. Boom, boom, boom. Let's check all these boxes. But it's one thing to be in year 3 and start to see those results, see the fruits of your promises. That's what you're seeing at Penn State. And again, like you said, are they where they're going to be? No, they're very excited about that 2026 class. We're very excited about that 2026 class. They're finally at a point where Penn State's brand is fighting with the MLB draft for guys to get on campus, which should excite any Penn State fans out there listening to this, because that's the reality of what that program should be. We should be sweating bullets over whether X player is going to be drafted, right? And I think that's a very important piece of, it's not a turnkey, easy bake oven, right? We're not flipping the roster. We're not coming in, making Omaha appearances right away, but we're building, and you're seeing the fruits of that build, and it's going to gradually come to fruition. And then they're going to kick that door in, and everybody's going to be like, oh, Penn State now national baseball brand. And I wholeheartedly believe that.
Yeah. And I think the what you just mentioned there with the recruiting thing is proof to the process, right, of what he said. And that's what's exciting. So like you said, like everyone has the vision coming in, and then what separates you? Well, one, it's can you execute the vision, right? Because you're not getting a job there. Like you're not getting a job there if you don't have a good plan going in. No one's getting a big time. You're not getting a power conference head coaching job unless you have, one, a track record of success, and two, a vision of how you can elevate the program in the new tenure. What separates you is, one, the investment. Then, can you get the resources to do that? They fundraised well. Obviously, like we talked about, Pat Kraft wants every single program on that campus to be national championship caliber. Then it's the culture that you can set up. And it's such a buzzword that sometimes I hate it, but like, it really does matter, and it really can be shown, and like outsiders can see it, and you can feel it, and then you can start to see it translate onto the field, and it starts to translate into winning. And like, he even pointed out to us, like, just like the way some of their guys, acted, and he pointed to us of like, this is something we need to clean up. And he gave us an example of something he didn't like in their facility being kept clean. And then he pointed to something that he did like that was clearly player led, of like how they were dressed. And it was just like that stuff. Like, that's when it starts to turn into those wins. That's when the proof in the process and that vision can start to come to fruition, is when you're getting the resources, and then you can get the culture in place. And it matters from the top guy is obviously most important, in the head coach, and Coach Gambino is just an incredible human being. obviously a great baseball coach, but then it matters who the assistants are. Do they believe in it, or are they pulling in a different direction? Because that can happen, right? If you know, 100% you can have head coaches who sit there and go, we've heard of a program where a head coach wants to do something a certain way, and a now former assistant was like, well, that stuff's stupid, and the guys didn't believe in it. And it's like, well, if you thought it was stupid, of course some of the guys thought it was stupid too, because you're probably acting like it's stupid. Like, duh, no wonder, and why he's a former assistant now. But like, so it matters who's on that staff, and every single person on the staff is kind of pulling in the same direction, and it also matters that they all believe in the vision, that they all understand how good of a program that place can be. And it's exciting. I'm just like super excited for what they have coming. And you said the talent's there, and now the resources. I mean, let's be honest. I'll say it now that it's done. Their facility before was like an old, worn down minor league facility, right? Like a minor league baseball field that you go to where, like, it was long ago, when it was built, it was nice, and now it's like it's kind of a dungeon. And they have flipped it and turned it into one of the best facilities out there. I mean, it's up there with everyone else, especially when you tie into the fact Greenberg, which is right down the street, and that's open to the athletes, and like the nutrition thing that they're doing, and talking to Wheels about how important that was, and like getting the nutrition in the baseball facility and being able to have meals for them there, and constantly be able to fuel them, because some of the things they were seeing from the team in their first 2 years was that guys were losing weight during the season. They weren't eating because they were in charge of it. And we didn't have a great way to get them food. Now we can provide them food. Now they can have snacks. Now they can have protein bars. Now they can have shake. It's all right there. It's in their facility. And then if you go 2 seconds down the street to Greenberg, on your meal card, you're getting like first class food. Like, you're getting like way better than any college campus food you've ever seen. And you can get 2 meals a day there for 6 days a week. Like, just the little things, those little things are so important. And that's when you go to the best programs in the country, when we're at Georgia and you see how, like, oh my gosh, they have everything they need right here. And it's like, it almost feels like excess. When you go to Arkansas and you're like, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous. It feels like excess. Those little things add up, and it matters, because now you're just making, like, you're not worrying about where you're getting food. You're not worrying about, how can I fit into my class schedule, also getting to the training room and doing this and this and this. No, it's all right there. It takes all the thinking out of it. It's so easy. You show up to the facility every day, and you have everything you need right there. You don't have to leave.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, that translates to wins indirectly, but it translates to wins, right? In a big way, because if each guy is able to, I mean, you talk about weight and time and things like that. I mean, that is one of the things that you want to keep guys healthy through the season. You want to keep pitchers' velocities at where they need to be. You want to keep hitters' power output at where they need to be. I mean, I was a Division III athlete, and I would lose 7 pounds in a week in Florida because we played 8 games in 6 days, and we were really out there in the sun, and we didn't have the proper catered lunch and all those things like that. And it's like, all of your off-season strength gains that you worked very hard for with the performance program that they have at an institution like Penn State, gone. You just lost 7 pounds in a week, right? You go down to Puerto Rico like they did last year. You play in the hot weather early in the year. Who's to say that these guys aren't losing the gains that they had? It's about maintenance, right? We're burning more calories in season. We're on a bus. We're on a plane. We're traveling now, Big Ten wise. They're going out to UCLA for a conference series potentially. They're going out to USC. They're going out to Oregon. They're going out to Washington. Those travel days are wear and tear on the body. And if you don't have the proper nutrition and recovery Monday through Friday, that trip out west is going to wear on those guys, and you're going to end up dropping 2 out of 3, even if your talent, like, that's not even factoring in talent. That's fatigue, jet lag, recovery, the body's ability to maintain, in those long extended periods of work, right? Like, all of those factors in. And then not to mention the talent side, right? Like, then you have to be more talented than these programs in those situations. So the nutrition side of things, it's huge, right? It's massive, and being able to have it accessible to guys to be, at the very least, to get their necessary protein, get their necessary, nutrients before practice if they did have class, but then having a full dinner, lunch catered to the facility like, hey, we got 7 guys that have class until 11:30, they lift 12 to 1, X, Y, and Z, and then we practice at 3, and they want to get early work in, so we know these 7 guys can't get over to Greenberg. Well, somebody from Greenberg packs up a nice little spread that they serve for lunch and brings it over to the baseball program, drops it off in their nutrition center that they have at the baseball field now, and those guys are able to eat a full lunch, right? Massive, massive. You just saved those guys not only success in the spring, time. Now they're able to spend more time studying, right? Academics first, athletics second, those kinds of things. Not to mention pitchers that need to do their prehab and rehab. So we're keeping guys healthy, right? Because now they're able to eat quick, bounce into the training room before they go out to early work. Boom. We just streamlined that process. And you mentioned the other schools that compete at that high of a level, the national championship level, they all have it right there. They don't have to go cross campus to find it, right? Even if they do share it to a certain extent, a lot of programs share those resources. It has to be accessible for athletes, right? For athletes within the time constraints that they have. We can't hop in a car, find a parking spot, walk 5 minutes to get to the dining hall, just be hoping, right, that we're not just getting pizza and, French fries and burgers, right? That you can have those things, but it has to be, with something healthy, with a salad bar, with some more greens and some of the nutrients that we need. And again, that's the most impressive thing of translating to the next level. And then on the recovery side, I mean, we talked about Greenberg. We'll be able to kind of highlight in the video of how important that is, how much thought and research went into the decisions that they're making. Everything from float beds, which 99% of the people have probably never heard of float beds. Throw them into Google and check them out. Hydro chambers, hydro massage, red light therapy. They can bring masseuse in for athletes that need it, one-on-one, as a team, everything. Hot, cold tub, sauna, steam rooms, everything. Just accessible there for athletes from 7A to 9:30 p. whenever athletes can get over there and get the necessary recovery that they need.
Yeah, it's like the details, man. Like, it's just, again, it's the little things. And it was so evident that the details mattered. I mean, when we watched them practice, it was like the details on the baseball field matter. But then when you talk about recovery and you talk about, like, when you were just talking about nutrition and fitting it into kids' schedules, like, college athletes at that level, their schedules are crazy. And a lot of times for them, like, one of the biggest adjustments for freshmen and why they struggle to get on the field early in their careers is, like, they're going from a high school schedule where, like, it's like, mom or dad, puts you on a bus or takes you to school, or you drive yourself to school, and, like, you got lunch and you got a couple periods of class and you go to practice, maybe you got to lift somewhere in there. Like, it's different. When you get to college, man, it's like you have 4 classes, probably. You have practice, you have workouts. We also have to recover, you have to sleep. You're doing it 9 months of the year. It's a full-time job, and it's, like, busier than most people who work a 9 to 5. You're busier. Like, and, add in people who work a 9 to 5, their extracurriculars, like their hobbies, and then maybe their families. Like, that's what a college athlete's day to day is for 9 months of the year. They're constantly on go. Well, Penn State recognizes that, and they want to, again, how do we protect these athletes? So they build this facility where, like, recovery is so crucial and sleep's so crucial. Like, because athletes are always on go at, having to perform, high stress, peak everything. And even in practices, like, those programs, like, your practices aren't easy. You're having, those practices are tough. They're high stress. And then games are high stress and high output. And so they've created an entire facility where it's like, we need to bring you down so that then you can sleep and recover. Because if we can put you in a float bed and get you to bring your senses down, which anyone who lays in a float bed, trust me, your senses will come way down. You will be the most relaxed person ever. Like, to then sleep better that night, so that then your recovery can happen. So then if there is, you're going to get banged up in your college career. If you are performing to the level you're expected to, you're going to get some kind of, bump, bruise, whatever, maybe hurt, not injured, but then there's also the injuries. To then have a facility where, like, you can expedite that recovery because you're promoting good sleep, and you're constantly, and not even just waiting until you have the hamstring pull, but you're working on the hamstrings after you've had a tough week of a lot of sprinting and heavy lifts. Like, we're recovering. I mean, it's pretty incredible. And, like, again, it just goes back to, like, every little detail in that baseball program at Penn State overall, but, like, in the baseball program, how important just, like, littlest details are is so, I was blown away. It's impressive.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point too. And I know we've kind of hinted at it a couple times, but we were able to watch practice when we got up there, right? And we were just able to we shot a little, of the work that they were doing and kind of just hung around as flies on the wall. And both of us have been a part of successful programs. And one of the things that, if you cornered me and was like, hey, what's the most important piece of winning baseball games? It's like talent. Get bigger, faster, stronger,
Yep.
be better than your opponent, you're going to win, right? And I think that shows in the teams that typically win national championships. But baseball is such a unique sport where you can outperform talent sometimes. You can be a system that coaches the right way, doesn't make mistakes, efficient in what you do, all of those things. And there's a program, right? And when you look at programs like Boston College in the ACC, you're a private school competing against public schools. You really don't have the in-state talent, at least in quantity, that some of these southern schools do, right? Accessibility. You're dealing with a weather advantage, right? Whenever a kid from Massachusetts, even if you have a superstar draft guy in Massachusetts, when a southern school comes calling, more times than not, 70 and sunny in March is a lot better than 45 and cloudy in March, right? All of these things. And I tie that in to say the winning that went on at Boston College under Mike Gambino was a sign, right? And I kind of circled that. And when he took the Penn State job, circled it and said, okay, like winning at a disadvantage is impressive in a sport like baseball. It takes not making mistakes. It takes putting pressure on opposing teams, not through just brute strength. It takes psychological preparation of your opponent and things like that. When we got to practice, it took me 2 seconds to realize they're heading in that same direction. The detail-oriented approach that they were working on, the rules that they have in terms of base running and defense, and again, like the little things. I was lucky enough to be around a program that we ran a system based, and how much goes into the system and the coaching and the discipline and the details, and how in particular you have to be coaching those details and to execute them right away. It's like, oh, that's what it felt like immediately. It wasn't, and they're going to get the talent that they need to win at a high level. But it's also when you can take the talent to win at a high level with the detail-oriented approach that can make you kind of fight out of your weight class in a typical talent versus talent setting, that's when you build really, really impressive programs that are fun to watch. I mean, he was coaching up guys on how to turn a double play, right? And it was something as, right foot coming through, being able to work through the ball, the ability to make your adjustments, whether you're going for the force out versus turning to, all of those things that, I always imagine, or at least what the public will tell you these college coaches are doing is, hey, go launch balls into the left field seats and let's just drop our back shoulder. And in the bullpen, guys are just ripping heaters as hard as they possibly can and trying to throw the nastiest breaking ball because that's all we care about is tech and what the TrackMan says. And we don't care about anything that outside of that. And it was so refreshing to see that the details were in fact important, almost more important than the things that we talked about. Again, charting successes between execution, right? And those little things that come to fruition. And you were down there on the field when they were doing their execution BP and things like that. And it was just so cool, refreshing, and brings my optimism level of, okay, now we have the resources. We believed we had the coaches, right? Now I know, after interviewing those guys, being around those guys, watching them, now I know we have the coaches to win at a high level. Now it just needs to be taken into the spring and win ball games.
Yeah, and like when you watch it, and like to your point, the details of like everybody has talent. Almost everybody now is catching up in resources to and understanding how important tech is and obviously the player development stuff. What allows you to then win games? And like the detail oriented nature of, like you said, like the where to, footwork around the bag on a double play. How about teaching the feeds from the shortstop to the second baseman or the second baseman to the shortstop on those feeds, the base running, being able to understand the importance of an extra 90 feet, and like how in a practice in the fall, when maybe that wasn't even the main, like there were even some instances that came up in that practice where that wasn't the main focus. It's like they were teaching everything and the details were important, because if you let that stuff slip, and sometimes I think that's what happens when you get so many talented guys, is like then the details slip because it's like, they're so talented, we can make up for it. So like, that doesn't matter today at practice. It's like, no, everything matters. Every single thing matters. If we are going to win, if we're going to do this the way we want to, every little thing matters. There's nothing we can overlook. Where's the, how are we handling the throws from the outfield? How are we, just like everything they did, base running, and then you hear what they're starting to do on the pitching side as well. And it just, everything is important to them. There's no detail that they don't think is important. And they carry themselves that way. And the players buy in because it's just the standard, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we've said, that is the standard, that everything you do when you come into this program, when you are part of this program, we're going to start teaching you from day one. And we talked to Coach Gambino about it. Like, how much of that accountability in the details and the little things do you want to be player led? And he was like, that's when we've got it, is when like those guys hold each other accountable. They figure it out. When someone's not paying attention to the details, their teammates telling them, this is why this matters, you have to do it this way. That's when they really will feel like they've gotten there. And he said they feel like they're getting close, and they have good leadership this year. And they have some veterans that are going to really help them. And if they can start recruiting at the level that they're starting to, like we're seeing in the 26 class, like that's why we think it's a rocket ship in a conference that's very gettable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'll hit on your last point there about the being player led. I mean, we were up in his office. We had just wrapped up our interview with him, all the things like that. So we're sitting there and we wrap up the interview and we look out, and player led catch play, right? Again, in college baseball, even if you don't have team practice, your pitchers have to throw, right? So player led, no coaches on the field, legal by NCAA standards, right? Everything that kind of comes from it. And every guy was wearing the same thing. And I initially looked out the window and was like, oh, they must have practice, club practice, because club uses their field. They were in after us on Tuesday night and all the things like that, because it looked like a standard practice. And he stopped us. We were talking about this, that, and the other, just having fun, shooting the breeze as we did. And he's like, look at that. He said, that's what we're trying to build. These guys organize themselves to not only throw at the same time. The expectation was just to ask them to throw, but also wear the same thing so we look like a team, right? And again, you talk about being player-led. That's those guys finding that as important, right? And holding each other accountable to say, no, we're not wearing whatever we want. We're showing up wearing the same thing, and that's the details that we're talking about that does directly translate to wins on the field. And back to the practice and the finer things and the talent, right? In a sport like football, we hear so much, right? We're tied into college baseball. We obviously box score watch in the spring, and then we do this. And you so many times you hear SEC bias, and just being frank with anybody who disagrees with that statement, the SEC in multiple sports is the most talented conference. They lead in draft picks. They have the most guys that throw 100 miles per hour. They have the most guys that can leave the yard with a form of consistency. They have the most first-round draft picks. Like, that is not up for debate in a sport like baseball, right? I don't think it's up for question. They're able to dominate in recruiting. They have the most financial investment, all of these things. But the beautiful thing about baseball is when you get to the regionals and you get to the super regionals, the people who complain about SEC bias have a legitimate gripe in my mind, because guess how many 1 seeds lose? Guess how many quote unquote favorites, right? We watch Florida go to Coastal Carolina and lose. Easy, right? ECU comes in, they execute at a high level, because the programs that are detail oriented enough to get to the postseason and then be able to put pressure on these SEC teams. I'm not going to say they don't focus on the details. I think that's a generalization. I guarantee if we ask these SEC coaches, how much do you work on the finer things and the details, they definitely do it. But they can get away with just being flat out more talented than their opposition. They end up losing those games, right? And they end up, ACC fans or whoever, after regional weekend, always have an argument to be made that we overrate SEC programs. right? They always have an argument to be made because they end up losing, because those details matter. In a sport like football, at the end of the day, we have certain genetics, right? I'm either 6'5", 350 pounds with good feet who can run a 5.2 40 as an offensive tackle, or I'm not, right? Like, or I'm not. And you can pick somebody up when an SEC program, a top SEC program, plays a top, ACC program. We can pick you up and move you out of the way. You can't do that in baseball, man. You can't do that in baseball. And the programs that compete at the highest level are the ones that get those big physical guys that get drafted, but also turn them into the best baseball players that they can be. And that's the direction I believe Penn State is going. And I truly do think that the finer details that they're building culture-wise, the little things, are going to translate directly when they start getting those draft guys on campus and start producing big leaguers and developing those guys. Because, like you said, Will Joust on the pitching side, unbelievably impressive. The tandem they have coaching hitters, unbelievably impressive, right? Like all of those development types. So you combine, we now have the strength resources, we have the recovery resources, we have the nutrition resources, we have the minds, right? Still need to catch up on the tech side of things, which they're working on. Culture-wise, details, again, check. Here's my $100 buying stock. Let's watch this thing grow into whatever it's going to be.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of baseball is the fact that it is such an individual sport. The main conflict is an individual sport of pitcher hitter, but you have to play as a team, and you have to be able to move runners, run the bases well, play good defense, do the things that aren't the flashiest and sometimes get lost in we need to make the best individual hitters and individual pitchers because everyone is different. So you have to unlike other sports where you're training one system, right? And we all have to play as 11 on both sides of the ball in football, and basketball, you're running a system and it's screens, cuts, and till you get to the NBA, there's not a whole lot of one-on-one. Whereas in baseball, it's I need to make you the best individual pitcher that you can be to help the team. But then we have to be able to be a team and understand, what my role is and do my role and not try to be doing too much. And again, when you have the staff that they have and you have the culture that they're building and the resources, that's what's going to allow them to be successful. So if you're a Penn State fan, it's an exciting time. And I mean, look out for them. I mean, we were probably a year early last year just because we had gone up and been around them and understood what they were trying to implement. And now that everything's kind of fully in place, I just expect them to, and they did from year 1 to year 2, they took a step forward, and I expect them to continue to take steps forward until they've reached their destination. And then it'll be about staying there, which is a whole different challenge. But the building, which is what they're kind of in the process of doing now, I think they're going about it exactly the right way. And I have no reason to believe that they're not going to be able to do it. It's, unless something crazy happens or dramatic changes happen and college athletics in general, which you never know in this landscape what could happen tomorrow that could cut the legs out of some of these programs. They're on the exact right path. And I don't see them taking steps backwards at any point, which you see sometimes, right? Because they're not just fully building out of the portal and trying to, some of these programs that come in and how they build this thing. Well, we're trying to turn something around. We want to turn it around ASAP. So we're going to just grab as much talent as we can out of the portal. And 1 year it works, the next year it doesn't, the next year it does. So they're not doing that. They're on a consistent build. And I just don't, there might be a setback in a series or in a stretch for them where it's come on, I thought we were past some of these mistakes that are showing up again. But year over year, I don't see there being any backsliding. It's going to be a consistent, just upward trajectory.
Yeah, he was talking about the stock market, right? When you zoom in, but when you zoom out year over year, it's linear in its upward trajectory. And I think that's a great example for what this program is becoming. And I think it's really important to say that because in the transfer portal era, you can push all your chips in, get the most talent, and be competitive year 1, right? And I'm not saying that they don't want to win. I'm not saying that they don't expect to win Big Ten championships as early as this spring. I'm not going to put those words in their mouth. But I think in terms of the health of a program, long-term health of a program, and you look at programs that it takes time, takes time. We want to recruit our kind of guys. We want to set our culture. We want to set our system. We want to invest and invest and invest and invest, right? Because the easiest way to get more investment into a program, be kind of good, but not good enough, right? So then I go to our boosters and I say, hey, we need this, right? We need
Yeah,
this and this
yeah.
and this, right? Compared to, like, let's say year one, they won 40 games. They went and bought all these guys that won 40 games in the transfer portal era. You go to a booster and say, hey, we want to, we lost in a regional. We thought we had a chance. We need to get better. They're going to be, you just won 40 games. Just keep doing what you're doing. It's not always as easy. So I know that's kind of just like an outsider's view. Obviously, we want to be competitive immediately and win as many baseball games as possible. But I do think it is fascinating to see that incremental growth. They're building it the right way. We're setting the foundation, right? We build a fence. You don't put the pillars up first, right? Like you set the foundation in the ground, and then you put everything, the post into the ground, and then you set the fence from there. Right. And I think that's what we're in the process of, the foundation of culture, doing things the right way. I mean, we were there, and I'm sure Coach Gambino wouldn't mind us saying this. He's looking at where their cleats are supposed to be when they come off field. He's like telling them, this looks horrible. Telling guys straight up, this is horrible. This is horrible. You don't know who's going to come through boosters, social media like us. And obviously it's not something that we particularly are making judgments over. But if he cares about that, the guys need to care about that. Seniors came out right away, clean that thing right up, right? It was right away. And they were like, yeah, we agree. This does not look good. They didn't roll their eyes. They didn't have bad body language, all those things. They understood how important that was to coach. They understood how important it was to them. And it just translates in how they take every inch of their work serious. So obviously a lot of fun. We just spent 47 minutes giving them the praise because, again, as we typically like to do, they give us their time. They give us their energy. They give us their effort. They appreciate us being there. We appreciate them giving us those things. So we definitely think it's very important to highlight the opportunities. And plus, it always ties into some baseball development, like the importance of recovery, the importance of leadership and culture and these things. Really fun one planned for this weekend. We're going to be heading out to Baton Rouge, Louisiana. The reigning national champions, LSU Tigers, are going to welcome us in. We're going to get some time with their strength and conditioning coach, Chris Martin. We're going to get some time with their director of pitching development, Jamie Tucko. So excited for that, obviously, because it's one of those programs that is synonymous with college baseball and the success of college baseball. So, Dan, what are you excited mostly about as the guy that's going to be on camera talking to these guys and getting to pick their brains about, what goes into winning a national championship, because both of them were a part of the program last year?
Yeah, it always fascinates me when we get to some of these places. Obviously, they've won 2 of the last 3 national championships. So, let's see how it's made. Let's see what goes on behind the scenes. That's always extremely exciting, just because they've been successful at the highest level you can be successful. So, what does it take? And obviously, you see some of the alumni they have. I mean, we're talking tons of first overall picks and things like that. Like that, LSU is one of the college baseball blue bloods. So, getting down there and seeing that, and also it's always fun to see the people behind the scenes at places like this, because the environment is so different down there, where you are constantly in having to win now mode, and there's pressure to do that. So it's always fascinating to see that.
Yes, and that is super important. Again, I think what's going to be most fascinating too is the details. I mean, we just spent so much time talking about Penn State and the details and how impressed we were. Is when you do recruit at the level of LSU and you do go get the best transfer portal guys and you do get the guys that are realistically only planning on being on campus for 3 years, not 4. And how do you get those guys to buy into the culture? And how do you get those guys to understand the development track and the little things, right? Like, again, it's probably pretty hard, or it takes a different breed of individual to teach a first rounder how to turn a double play, right? Like the little things. Like he's gonna be like, dude, I'm sick, I'm good enough, right, to do those things. That's what sets the good programs from the greats and the greats from the elites, right? Taking that great to elite step. And I'm curious to see how they execute that and how they continue to get buy-in for their guys on those little things, on those finer details, because it's a lot easier to get away with the finer things when you throw 97 with a hoppy heater and a banger slider and you get drafted in the first round. But how do you go beyond that? How do you be the best version of yourself? Because it's all obviously an ultra competitive landscape that they're in. with the guys around them. I mean, you mentioned your favorite story is the guy who came in the College World Series. We're sitting in the hotel room in Miami, watching them play Arkansas. It's like, oh, here comes a dude with 14 innings pitched. It's like, trots out. It's like 97 with the grossest slider you've seen all year. It's like, oh yeah, great. That guy gets 14 innings a year. That's unbelievable. How does that happen? So it'll be really cool to see that in practice a little bit. And obviously guys will be on campus as well. So being able to maybe get a peek behind the curtain from that standpoint.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be awesome. It's fun getting out to all these schools, man, and just seeing it. It's fun to kind of tour around and get to. We've had a busy last couple months, and hopefully it continues.
Yeah, shameless plug here. If you're tuning in, or maybe you're just catching this, a glimpse of this, or something of that nature. Sometimes I sit there and I question how more people aren't obsessed with the stuff we do, because it's so fun and it's so informative and it's so educational. And if you're a college baseball fan, if you're a college baseball player, if you're a college baseball coach, a high school player who wants to learn more, just a baseball fan in general, and who just wants to see what life is like at these schools, man, should you be tuning into quite frankly everything you do. You don't have to sit here and listen to us for an hour. You might not care about what Dan and I have to say. Sometimes we question why people should care about what we have to say, as two guys that are just regular dudes that just want to sit and talk about baseball for a living. But when we put a microphone in front of these coaches and these people, you should be tuning in, quite frankly. And I think that I firmly believe that. So I think that's something that if you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure you do that right now, and head over there and make sure you're following on all social channels so that you don't miss any of the content that we do, because really have a streamlined process. We're super excited about the campuses we've been able to visit and continue being able to visit. And we're just getting started right for the fall, which is the most exciting part. So Dan, any closing thoughts before we let our listeners get out of here?
Nope.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, that'll do for this episode of the Baseball Development Hub podcast. Make sure you smash that subscribe button so you don't miss an episode.